Hi there, welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome back if you're not. My name is Candace and I am currently in my booktube phase of life where I am just hiding away from the cold, and again, it's not dark outside, but usually darkness, wrapped up in a cozy blanket, reading all the things that I can possibly read during this time of year where I just feel super motivated to do so. And today I have a book review for you on Just Like the Other Girl. Sorry if there's a glare. This is a library copy. I'm trying to do more books from the library this year. That's one of my goals for 2023. Don't buy them unless they're 5 stars and you know that you're going to read them again. Support your local library. There we go. And also read what I currently have on my shelf. Anyway, so this is Just Like the Other Girls by Claire Douglas. It was originally published in 2020 in the UK, but it is new to us in the US as of January 2022. So I think this is a UK version, but either way, it doesn't matter. So synopsis, what is this about? Our primary protagonist, and I say that lightly. By the way, this is no spoiler. I'm not going to give you a single spoiler. But our main protagonist is Una. She is a young girl, just feeling 22. Her mom unfortunately just died, and she had this really, really strong connection with her mother. And now she needs to find somewhere to work so that she can follow her dreams of traveling the world, which her mother was never able to do. So she's doing that so that her mother's memory can live on through her. It's very important to her. And she currently works in sort of like a nursing home, but it's of course very stressful, very high demand, low pay, but she finds what is essentially, well, it's not a Craigslist ad, but they do mention Craigslist killers jokingly in this book, but an ad for a role to be a caretaker for this elderly, affluent lady. Her name is Elspeth. And which, by the way, I'm like, the more that I read the book, the more that I was kind of falling in love with that name, Elspeth. Like, I don't know what it is. Something about it is magical. I need to look up more about that name because it's just calling to me. But she is this kind of odd older lady. She's actually quite spry for her age, but her daughter and everyone else seems to think she can get along just fine. She may or may not actually need a caretaker. And her daughter is another main character in this book. She's in her 40s. You know, she's got her own family, 2 sons who are just driving her up the walls. One of them is in high school and he's got his own problems and stuff. And, you know, she wants to be able to take care of her mother, but she doesn't want her mom to, you know, waste her money on caretakers that she doesn't need. Like, she doesn't need a live-in support person because she's not a nurse. She's literally just there to like walk her to get her hair done and go with her to the theater and make her tea. Like, it's literally just a live-in friend, which is kind of sad. The mother, Elspeth, will not, you know, take her daughter's advice and won't let her give up her time with her own family in order to take care of her. And there's a lot of like family drama. So let's just go ahead and go into that. This is 100% as much a family drama as it is a thriller mystery. I think that they are equally matched in this. There's this ever-present conflict between the mother and the daughter, and it takes a while for us to really hash it out. And even when you figure it out, like what the baseline issue is, there's so much complexity and nuance to this relationship that is explored in this novel. So where does the mystery thriller come in? The last 2 girls who had this job that Una has suspiciously died. So one of them got killed by a hit and run, and the other one, who most recently died, died by an apparent suicide. The brother of the most recently dead young woman, he becomes involved in the tale. Una's best friend ends up becoming involved as well, and we have a few more supporting characters who get involved in trying to figure out what is going on, partially for their own sake and well-being of, no, my sister couldn't have killed herself, and then also from the perspective of, is my friend going crazy? Do I need to like convince her that no, she should keep this job, she's just being paranoid, it's a little old lady and her middle-aged daughter, like she's fine, she's safe. So there's a lot of not only who done it, but did anyone do anything? So throughout the book, we're changing perspectives between about 3 to 4 different characters. I can't remember exactly. We changed perspectives a lot. I'll get to that in my pros and cons in just a bit. But there's also this mystery perspective that is done in italics, and it's meant to be the onlooker, the person, whoever it was that got rid of the other girls, and has it out for them for whatever mysterious reason. So you're going back and forth between who is the narrator of this mystery italicized portion. Don't get them after every single chapter. At the beginning, we get them more often, and then toward the end, you might get one every few chapters or so. Another thing to note about the novel, all in all, is it gives like current day Downton Abbey vibes, and the main character Una does allude to this, which helps kind of pull you into that idea as well. So if you remember Maggie Smith's character from Downton Abbey, kind of the same way as Elspeth. I mean, with her own unique spin, but it's very much so that. And it's like living in modern day, but they want it to be Downton Abbey times. Anyway, so there's that. That's kind of like the roundabout synopsis. So let's get into what I did like about this book. So first, and probably more so, I liked that this book focused so heavily on motives. We have a lot of unlikable characters in here, a lot of really well fleshed out characters who not only maybe do unlikable things, but like things that you hate, like could easily make you hate a person. But we learn so much about their motives and their reasonings for why in a way that makes the reader become just a tiny bit empathetic or sympathetic, to where you may not excuse their behavior, but you get why they did it. Like, you understand so many different characters in what is relatively a short book. And as someone who loves character development, this was just great. So not only do we have consistent action moving us through the plot, but we have amazing character development through multiple characters, not just the main character and the antagonist, but a wide array, actually. We get to learn about a lot of different people through this story. So again, this is fast-paced, shorter chapters. We're jumping back and forth in timeline just a bit through part of the book. So we get to have a little bit of a breath of fresh air every now and then as we're changing perspectives and settings and timeline. It does move rather quickly, and it was not hard for me to finish this within a 24-hour period. I'm not going to tell you what it is, and I'm just going to barely mention it, but there is an interesting midway twist in this book. We have this huge awakening, like moment, epiphany, and then like the second half of the book feels completely different. Now, at first this was jarring, and it did slow down the pace a little bit because I wasn't expecting it. And hopefully this didn't ruin that for you. I'm not going to tell you what the twist is, but it's there, and I hope that it catches you off guard as well and that you appreciate it. So going back to the character development, a lot of times in books like these, especially with younger protagonists who are putting themselves in danger, we kind of tend to judge them quite a bit, and we're like, why did you make that dumb decision? But in this book, I feel like the setup is good enough to where you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I can understand why you hung around in this situation that was obviously, to us as the reader, a dangerous one. Like, it's not necessarily so obvious to the person who's living it, and we get to know that. Like, we understand it, so we're not judging the main character quite as much as we would be otherwise. And again, just to kind of harp on this, I was consistently guessing, who is the killer? Like, who is it that did this? And is there even a killer? It was something that I was constantly having to question. I thought I knew who it was, and then I had to guess, and then I guessed again. And I mean, it was fun. It was a fun time of figuring out who done it. So now let's go into what I didn't like. And I'll go ahead and put my rating here. At first, I would have rated this a 4 out of 5 stars easily. I had to drop it to a 3.5 because there was one thing in this book that was just so irritating and took me out of the story that I couldn't ignore it, and I had to dock it half a point. And that is what some would call fat phobia. I just call it lazy writing. I don't need to know that the one character who is overweight, you've told us multiple times that she's overweight. I don't need to know that she shook her chins. Like, that is literally said in here, I think 2 or 3 times. And it's unnecessary. It's rude, and it's lazy. They say that this character is waddles instead of walks, which, okay, fine, you're trying to paint a picture. But then you go so far as the author to say, I wish there was another way to word it, but there isn't. And it's like, do you think we're dumb? Like, that was offensive to me as a reader, because you don't think that I just understand that you're trying to communicate that, and also you're trying to push off you being rude to this character about her size, which is what you're doing. So it's that goes into a whole nother issue, which is the perspective. So we switch not just character perspectives, but we switch back and forth between who is speaking in first person and then who is speaking in third person, which makes it really confusing as to who the narrator is. And I don't think that it makes it confusing in a good way. Like, should we trust the character? I think that it just makes it harder to read and to keep up with, especially as we're changing perspectives. And then the other thing is that from what I remember, the majority of it is written in first person. So why then, when you're writing in first person, do you need to say something along the lines of, well, this is really suspicious, I thought to myself? Just say, this is really suspicious. You're obviously thinking it to yourself if it's not in quotations. So a little bit of that, also just happening more and more throughout this story, kind of kept taking me out of it, and I kept just wanting to correct it. Like, why are you doing this? It just made it harder to read. It wasn't so difficult to read to where I had to like put it down. It just took me out of the story and the plot at hand often enough to where I remembered it when I was writing my notes for this video. So the next thing that I'll note is, as far as like things that I didn't love, is that there seemed to be, I don't know if it was errors or inconsistencies throughout the prose, where, and I don't look for these things. I don't look for plot holes. I really don't. I just read for the experience. I'm not constantly trying to critique. The only things that I write down are literally things that like I just could not look over. But I don't go into any book looking to critique it. I go into every book hoping for a 5 out of 5 experience. So there were some slight details that just seemed inconsistent throughout the book that could have been plot holes, maybe some issues. I'm not sure. I'm not going to go back through and like white and underline and highlight and try to figure out, you know, exactly where this author or the editing team might have messed up. But I didn't know if, at one point, I didn't know if I couldn't figure out who did it based on, oh, it's just a really good mystery, or based on, was I being misled by a mistake that was done along the way by the author, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the last thing, the last little critique, I did not like the ending. The entire, so what I would consider as like this section of an ending, fine, great. You know when you have a movie that ends and then it goes on for like 1 or 2 more minutes and you're like, why did you add on those 1 or 2 more minutes? That's how I feel about the last couple pages of this book. I feel like things were wrapped up pretty well and you could have tied in what happened in the last 1 or 2 pages. I don't think that it was as carefully or thoughtfully done as the character development that we saw throughout the rest of the book. I think that the decisions and the way that our final character, the one who was narrating at the end, I think that what she did and said at the end of this book did not fit at all with who we saw being developed throughout the course of the book. Now, does that mean that this is still someone who we still haven't quite figured out, that she has more secrets? Or is it just confusing for no reason? I don't see this needing a sequel. I don't think that it should have a sequel. And so I would not consider that necessarily to be a cliffhanger. It doesn't even read like a cliffhanger. I don't think that it alludes to there being another book. I think that it was just put out there to be like a, gotcha, one last thing. But it was just, man, now you're just being weird. So I did not love the ending. The very last 2 pages, I think it was unnecessary. So final suggestion, this book is for you if you like family dramas, if you like whodunits, strong female character analysis and development. We love to see it. I think it was very, very well done. And then also I can't say this. I can't say this thing. There was one thing on my list that I wanted to include as if you would like it, but I can't say it or it's going to spoil it. So I'm glad I caught myself. And then basically not living up to expectations. I will say that one. I think that that's a theme that we're pretty used to seeing in family dramas, so I don't think I'm spoiling that much about it. Yeah, I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely suggest it. I think that you would love reading it if any of those are your style. But that is my review. I hope you enjoyed it. I have way more bookish content coming out soon. I will link to some here in this area. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if that is on your journey. That was a weird thing to say. Sorry I put it that way, but it's out there and I don't feel like re-recording anymore because my brain is tired. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, night, whatever. All the best to you and yours. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks.